Ash vs. the Evil Dead Episode 2 entitled Bait. First of all, awesome of these guys who the first episode they got nearly 8.5, which doesn't seem like much, but on Stars, which is a network that everybody does not have, it's not on basic cable, is not that bad. There have been series on the station that have done very well with a little bit more than that, and I think that this is a show that will eventually reach that plateau. So let's talk about Bait. Let's talk about episode 2. Whenever we last left our heroes, we know that Ash is, well, kind of an idiot. He let the evil escape by getting really, really high with some floozy and chanting stuff from the Book of the Dead. Way to go, Ash. Well, at this stage, Kelly, who is his coworker Pablo's girlfriend and somebody who Ash finds to be particularly hot, has kind of indicated that she's gotten something from her dad indicating that her mom is home. And of course, Ash is suspicious considering her mother was supposed to be dead. This is based off a story that was told in episode number 1. So initially the plan was to get ready to head toward a bookstore that was promised to be able to translate the book. Now our detective friend is able to discover the business card a little bit later on in the episode and head that way as well, and it seems like this half of the universe is starting to try to converge onto Ash, especially after the police are called to the scene to investigate all of the murder that happened at the trailer park in last week's episode. However, Kelly leaves on Pablo's motorcycle and heads toward her parents' place, and Pablo tells Ash that she has the Book of the Dead. We, of course, later learn this isn't true, but that's really hardly the case. This leads to a driving scene where their old boss from Value World is in the backseat of Ash's car while another Deep Purple song is playing, this time the fan-favorite Highway Star, as opposed to what we got last week, which was Space Truckin'. And during this scene, we learned that Pablo is still a bit skittish about this whole thing. Ash has to essentially stab the shit out of this guy with a broken beer bottle, which he has in his car because he's an alcoholic, and then dangle the deadite out a window, only to have the deadite be decapitated by another vehicle. So we end up at Kelly's place, and her mom seems very normal, but Ash is, of course, very skeptical, having been here before. Pablo is even right now turning over to the other side toward Kelly's side because he kind of loves her. He kind of wants to, But at any rate, we, of course, eventually learn that her mom is deadite, and Ash has to basically kick her ass. However, Ash gets himself into a bit of a pickle as her mother's able to overpower him after stabbing her former husband, because, God rest his soul, he's now dead. Stabbed him with a fork. Dead. Done. And Pablo ends up having to be the one that saves the day. He's able to save the day whenever Ash gets overpowered by this deadite by stabbing her in the back of the head, which gives Ash enough momentum to get free and finish the job. So overall, this episode is all leading toward accomplishing the goal of helping Kelly out, because she was very concerned about her parents, but also now the three of them are officially together on this mission, and they're heading toward the bookstore. This episode kind of follows in some of the ridiculous motivations of the first one, so it's nice to see that even though this episode wasn't directed by Sam Raimi and Ivan and everything, this is one that still stays very true to the style. There are some CGI effects on this, especially whenever it comes to the death scenes, as you might imagine, and these are done very well. There's a fine level of detail that has been really used here to kind of give it a bit of a film noir perspective, only it's over-the-top film noir in the case where everything is just sort of amplified to the 10th degree, and the coloration on this really is the accent. It's sort of the cherry on top. The reds that you get from the blood all seem to vary based around what portion of the body it's trying to simulate coagulation as well as a freshness level, all while still sustaining itself as very, very over the top. And this is especially true whenever you see the amount of blood that is spilled in the car with Ash stabbing his now ex-boss with the broken beer bottle. But overall, the story is progressing very nicely. We essentially solve the task, one of the two tasks that was at hand presented in the very first episode, and now we're heading toward the second of those tasks, which is heading toward the bookstore, which promises to happen in next week's episode. So what have you guys thought about Ash vs. Evil Dead so far? So far, this is something where I have to reiterate what I stated with the very first episode. The mixture of humor is, along with the sort of seriousness of this horror style, this horror genre, really plays very nicely, and the script writing is tight, and it really accents this. And also, everything has been eloquently rewritten to really apply to Ash as an older male, an older adult, as opposed to him being a younger kid. And this is something that's reflected both in the adults as well as the younger individuals. Pablo is now affectionately calling Ash Jefe after the first episode, and Kelly is sort of reluctant to join these individuals, but after seeing what happened at her parents' place, after seeing the slaughter of both of her parents and essentially becoming an orphan, she kind of doesn't have a choice. And as Ash affectionately says, he reminds her, or she reminds him of a young him, where essentially the deadites took everything from him, and he's on his hell. Of course, that last part he was applying more toward her, but you kind of get the point. It's a little bit of self-centeredness, which is always going to be present in Ash because we wouldn't have it any other way. So I like where this series is going. I want to see where this goes beyond just the bookstore, because you can tell that it's not going to simply be that easy. What challenges will await our heroes once we get to the bookstore? And what about the law? It really seems like the previews for the next episode are showcasing that the law is going to get a lot more involved. And it seems like everybody that is around Ash Williams is pretty much marked for death thanks to the deadites. Let me know what you think about the episode and the series in the comments below. I am Theaterofthesun, technically Cover Killer Nation. If you like what you see, definitely hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next week whenever we talk about another boomstick wielding, chainsaw churning episode of Ash vs. the Evil Dead.